What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be doing a full breakdown of the laser attachments in Black Ops 6, including a key bug with the laser visibility in this game that I wanted to make sure I was pointing out because it is a map-based thing, and it turns out you do have to be aware of the map you're playing if you're planning on using laser attachments. And you know what? Let's just dive into that bug first so you guys know about that right up front, and then after, I'm going to be going through each laser individually and sharing exactly what it does, how it works, and whether or not I feel it's worth using depending on your setup. But first, the bug. This is something I've had pointed out to me a couple times in the past where I've shown with the Strelok Laser, which is one of my preferred lasers in this game, that the laser visibility is basically just non-existent. It's technically there. If you're looking really hard in a dark environment, you might be able to see that laser beam, but realistically speaking, in the heat of the moment, you're probably not going to be seeing that, and at most, you might see the dot projected on the wall. And therefore, the conclusion of that was, at least with the Strelok Laser, you don't really have to worry too much about your laser being visible and giving away your position, because more often than not, the enemy's just not going to be able to see that, and even if they do, they're probably not going to be able to interpret that information and react accordingly before you're already engaging with them. Now, after that video, I had a few people point out that they were noticing the laser was significantly more visible than what I showed in my video, and they shared screenshots that showed that that was actually the case. However, a trend I noticed with everybody that pointed this out is they were showing images on the map protocol. So that led me to believe that perhaps laser visibility is bugged out and it's based on the map that you're playing, and that is correct. So I actually went into every core map in the game and tested laser visibility, and it turns out with every map aside from protocol, the lasers are really difficult to see. Some maps, the laser was like literally just invisible, even in really dark areas, which is where I was always trying to test this, was in a darker area on the map to give us the best shot of potentially seeing the laser. And it was very clear in the case of every single laser attachment on every map aside from protocol, laser visibility is pretty much a non-issue. It's unlikely people are going to be able to see that laser and react to it. However, on protocol specifically, regardless of where you are on the map, this is what the lasers look like. They are so much brighter, and this goes for every single one of the laser attachments, by the way. It wasn't just one of them, but all of them are so much brighter. That's a very clear laser beam, and you will absolutely be seeing those in the game, and that will definitely be giving your position away to anybody that's paying attention. So hopefully this is a bug they can get on top of and fix, but in the meantime, just know if you're playing on protocol, it is in your best interest to avoid laser attachments, whereas for all the other maps, you're fine, and laser visibility really isn't that much of an issue. And knowing that, you may want to start using lasers more often on your setups. I actually thought some of these lasers would be brighter and more visible than others, but it's just not the case outside of that map. So let's get into the testing I've done here and show exactly what these lasers do. And we're going to start it off at the top here with the steady aim laser. This is the one that just improves your hipfire spread in general. And with this, based on my testing, if you're standing, walking, sprinting, or firing your gun, your hipfire spread will be reduced by roughly 18 to 30%. It does depend on the gun. You can see these stats in the advanced stats for yourself, but they're not exactly clear on which situations you're getting this hipfire reduction, so that's what I'm showing you guys today. However, if you're jumping, sliding, or diving, your hipfire spread is exactly the same as if you didn't have this attachment on whatsoever. So if you're the type that likes to slide into a gunfight while hipfiring, this is not the attachment for you, and instead, this is where the next laser comes in. This is the fast motion laser. Now with this one, unlike the steady aim laser, if you're standing, walking, sprinting, or firing, this laser is doing nothing to help you. You have the exact same hipfire spread as the base gun. However, when you jump or slide, your hipfire spread is going to be reduced by roughly 25% based on the guns that I tested on so far. Keep in mind, this one isn't stated in the advanced stats, and it's possible there's some variance depending on the gun. But as far as I can tell, this is going to be at least roughly around that 25% mark. And when you dive, I actually measured a 40% reduction to your hipfire spread. So definitely more of an improvement when diving compared to sliding and jumping. And as a result, what I found is for many of the guns that have a camo challenge that require you to get hipfire kills, I actually tend to lean more in the direction of the fast motion laser because more often than not, I'm trying to slide into that gunfight or dive into that gunfight, and that's where the fast motion laser comes in. Whereas if you're just sort of standing still or walking around, then you'll want to use the steady aim laser for hipfire kills. After that, let's talk about the TAC laser, and this is the one that gives you tactical stance, which we had for free without using an attachment last year with Modern Warfare 3, and also there was no visible laser in that case, whereas in this case, there is a visible laser, but again, outside of protocol, they're probably not going to see it. With this one, based on my testing, when you activate it and you aim down sight, you're not actually getting fully aimed down sight, it just tightens up your spread by about 45 to 50% compared to your standing hipfire spread. And what this means is you're going to get a much tighter tactical stance spread with something like an SMG, because it has a small hipfire spread by default, compared to an LMG, which has a very wide spread by default. And therefore, in tac stance, you're also going to have that wider spread. Now, based on all the testing I've done with other attachments trying to combine it with the TAC laser, there doesn't appear to be any way to improve this spread for a particular gun. Your TAC stance spread is your TAC stance spread for that gun, and that's final, which is a bit unfortunate because sometimes you really want to get that a bit tighter, but you just can't. However, there are a couple other cool things to point out with the TAC laser. Your quote-unquote aim down sight speed, even though you're not fully aiming down sight, but going from not aiming down sight to the tightest possible spread with this TAC laser is going to be 20% faster than your aim down sight time with that particular setup. So that means you don't have to focus as heavy on aim down sight attachments if you are using the TAC laser. And then on top of that, if you're strafing in a gunfight while aiming down sight with the TAC laser, you're actually able to move 10% faster than if you were fully aiming down sight without this laser. So that's yet another benefit where you can strafe back and forth in gunfights and be a harder target to hit when using TAC stance with this TAC laser. So there we go, that's the TAC laser. Now let's move on to my favorite laser in the game, which I already have made a dedicated video on, so we're just gonna do a quick recap here. This is the Strelok Laser. With this laser, pretty much the moment you start aiming down sight, you get nearly full accuracy toward the center of your screen. And what this means is even if you have an extremely slow aim down sight time, let's say you're using an LMG with a 400 plus millisecond aim down sight time, that aim down sight time doesn't really matter that much because you have nearly full accuracy within about 50 milliseconds of starting to aim down sight. You might not be able to see your sight yet at that point, but if you just trust that you have the enemy centered on your screen, you're going to be hitting that enemy very consistently while you're in the process of aiming down sight. And that is incredibly powerful depending on the setup that you're going for. I personally really like combining that with the CQB grip so I can improve my sprint to fire time a lot without having to worry about my aim down sight time at all, because with the Strelok laser, I don't really have to worry about my aim down sight time all that much as long as I'm trusting where the center of my screen is. So that's a Strelok, definitely an attachment you shouldn't be ignoring in this game. And this just leaves us with the target laser. And with this one, the main thing it does is it gives you a 32% increase to your idle sway delay. And just in case you aren't familiar, every time you aim down sight with a gun, you're actually going to be like pinpoint accurate for a very short period of time, about a second or so, give or take, depending on the gun. And then after that delay takes place, now the idle sway starts coming in, and you'll notice your sights start to bob and move around a bunch, and that may throw you off target for your first shot accuracy. Whereas with the target laser, that time before that bobbing and that swaying starts is increased by 32%. So it gives you that little bit of extra time after aiming down sight to get yourself on target without having to deal with that sway. However, something I was surprised to find with my testing here is once the sway starts taking place, this laser appears to have minimal, if any, impact whatsoever on the magnitude of the sway or the amount of sway that you experience. So if you've already been aiming down sight for 2 or 3 seconds, I can't really tell the difference in the amount of sway you're experiencing whether you have this laser or not. And I was surprised to see that. I thought this was improving your sway in general. That doesn't appear to be the case, or if it is helping, it's by such a small margin that I can't really pick up on it with my testing. However, that's of course assuming you're standing still. Another thing that this helps with is your aim walking steadiness. And this means if you're strafing back and forth in a gunfight, this is going to control how much your sight is going to be bobbing up and down with that movement. And therefore, this can be quite a helpful attachment, especially if you're building really heavily toward aim walking speed and you are planning on strafing back and forth a lot in gunfights. This can help keep you on target quite a bit. Generally, I would say it's not necessary, but it can help you in this area. Overall, though, I would say this laser excels the most on sniper rifles because having that longer delay before the massive amount of sway kicks in on sniper rifles can be very helpful for getting that accurate shot off without having to hold your breath. Although in saying that, if you're quickscoping, the Strelok laser is also an excellent option because, like I said, you get near perfect accuracy within about 50 milliseconds of engaging and aiming down sight. And with that, that's finally going to wrap it up for today's laser breakdown in Black Ops 6. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First off, were you guys surprised to see that bug on Protocol with the lasers being far more visible? And second, especially now that you know what these lasers do exactly, and you know that they're hardly visible outside of Protocol, do you think you're going to be using any of these lasers more often or not? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.